First one here. Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2. Check. Check. Check 1 2.
Oh, really? Yeah, so if you plug it in as a there's something you want, yeah, you can sign up an account and you can get reminded of this type of thing. Yeah. You should do that. Yeah. For a good telescope. I'm 90%. They have like amazing telescopes now for like $1,000, you know, where you can see more distant objects, nebula and stuff like that. But if I could get like $1,000 telescope for $300-400, yeah. Or like if I'm gonna spend $1,000 on a $3,000 telescope, you know, I don't know. But a couple years ago, I bought one at Canadian Tire on sale, and it was just like 70 times magnification, and I had to set my alarm on May long for like 4 a.m. to see Jupiter and Saturn. But then I was up all night until the sun rose,
Looking at stuff.
looking at Jupiter and Saturn. That's just amazing. Like they're
Even that just like 7 times?
70 times.
Oh, 70
So, yeah,
times.
that was like a Celestron 70 something. And it turns out I wasn't even using the most powerful lens. So even with, because it came with 2 lenses, and for some reason, I don't know, I was backwards with the numbers, right? But even on that, I could clearly see, you know, 4 of Jupiter's moons and the cloud bands. And I mean, once you realize you're like looking analog at an image.
Yeah.
It's not even an image. You're looking at Jupiter.
At the
through
real
this
thing,
lens.
yeah.
It blows your mind. And
Yeah.
then just off to the side, Saturn is positioned very close, and you can distinctly see the rings.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't take myself away from that. I just stared at that. It was just amazing, right? I don't know.
Yeah. That's cool.
Jupiter is so bright. Like often, if you go out on like an overcast night, or you know, with city light pollution, and there's like, you know, 1 or 2 stars visible, it turns out they're likely planets. And with Jupiter,
Oh, yeah.
because of the moons, they're so large and bright, it looks like, to the naked eye, it looks like a smudge. It looks like, oh, it's not a single point of light, but that's your eye kind of just trying to process the smudge of multiple sources of light. And then
Oh.
even with binoculars, you can kind of see, oh wow, there's actually a body there with several things, and people don't realize Jupiter's quite visible.
Yeah, even with binoculars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. I'm
I'm Joe. Nice to meet you. So, what kind of?
Following you on Twitch.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I, tune into your set stuff.
Oh yeah.
So as soon as I saw your name involved with this, I was like, wicked, man. I share your interest in funky banging music.
Oh yeah. Cool. Cool. Do you produce music too? Are you starting?
I wish. Years ago I would play around with things like Fruity Loops and Reverb, and then I actually have like a couple of Electrabs that I bought a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
Little
Yeah, those
Electrabs,
were
like
cool.
One's a
Yeah.
synthesizer, one's a sampler.
Yeah.
I got a MIDI man. They're synced, and I can spend hours doing stuff, but then I get tripped up on like drum programming and how to make things sound the right way and stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you could just pour hundreds of hours into that stuff. And
Yeah.
then eventually, and then life takes over other aspects of life, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to find the time to get all that done. Yeah.
for sure, man.
Yeah.
So,
Hi. Yeah, it's going to be a light turnout, but well, it's okay. We'll still do it. We'll see. Does that street look like? I'll wait till Nathan gives me the go-ahead. Yeah, I don't usually work on a laptop. I usually have, I work on a desktop, an old Mac from 2012. It's got 12 cores in it though, and it's,
Mac Pro.
yeah, it's a Mac Pro tower with all the RAM in. I think it's got 24 gigs of RAM or something like that.
It's still last you 30 years, right?
It doesn't run the latest version of Logic anymore because I can't install the newest operating system in it. Mojave is the last one that it'll run on. But that's okay. Like the newer versions of Logic. Hi.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What's the stream name on Twitch or Facebook that you guys are going to be streaming off from? You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know what it's on.
That's okay. I can ask Tim those that.
Oh, he'll know.
Okay. What's
The Twitch channel that this is on.
It's on a few. It's Manitoba 204.
I'm just going to add it because I probably won't be able to catch it. Well, I'll hear it, obviously.
Yeah, we'll record it. We'll release it later.
I figure there might be an issue.
And then Beats Union Music on YouTube as well.
I'll tell you, I have an iMac from 2005,
Oh.
and I still use it.
Yeah.
So, I got friends with PCs, and they replaced them like 6 times in that time.
Yeah, they do last, right?
But again, it's like, you can't get the newest OS.
Yeah.
So certain things drop out. All the video streaming services, I can't get to any of those because Silverlight, you need a certain version of Silverlight to get to it, and I can't use it.
Oh, really?
I tried to research and
Oh.
sleuth my way and figure out if there's a workaround through other browsers or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, there's a real barrier there.
What's the highest operating system you can run?
I think I'm on like Snow Leopard or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a good one.
That's way back when, right?
Yeah, everything ran really nice and tight with Snow
Yeah.
Leopard.
Yeah, the only problem with Apple is Apple.
Yeah.
It keeps getting more and more heavy, like the bloated, I guess. Or I don't know.
But I still download movies on it and do stuff on there, and YouTube works.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff in the browser works. Things like Wikipedia are up and down because of its certifications. I don't know, but
Oh yeah. Huh.
I'm listening to the conversation 30 seconds ago about how everything's bloated and you're running Snow Leopard. Mike's picking it all up.
Oh yeah. So are we live? Should we go?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna go monitor from the chairs over here.
Okay, yeah.
Do your thing, Joe.
Yes, thank you for coming, everybody.
Everybody, Joe Silva.
We got a packed room in here for the people listening and watching on Twitch. Standing room only, but that's okay. We'll make it work. I'm going to talk a little bit about my process with remixes in Logic. That's the program I use. And I'll go through a remix that I just finished recently with Jason. It's a Tone Pushers remix. I ended up doing most of the work at home because Jason was busy playing in Iceland, and this one needed like a quick turnaround. So he's doing the other one. We're doing two remixes. He's doing the lion's share of the other one, and I did the lion's share of this one. And the way we work before COVID is he'd come over to my place every Tuesday, and we'd work for a couple hours and you know, lay down ideas and so on. And then every week we would work on stuff. But since COVID happened, we kind of decided it works better if we each work on our own and then throw it to the other guy, you know, like make stems, which is, stems are just like, you know, what you're seeing on the screen now is stems. They're just like wave files of all the different channels. Kind of like in the past where we had 2-inch tape and it had like 24 tracks on 2-inch tape. Well, this is the same idea. It's like, you know, 24 tracks or whatever. Yeah, so we throw stems back and forth, and he'll work on it for a while and then throw it back to me, and then I'll do stuff to it. But in this case, I did all the stuff, and then I just give him progress reports, and he'd listen to it and make comments. So yeah, this song is originally at 120 beats per minute. So let's give it a listen. Got various parts here, kick, another kick, claps. Some parts don't start till later on. More drums. So my usual process is bringing all these stems into a template. See, I divide them up into low percussion, medium percussion, high percussion, bass, pads, if there is any, or stabby kind of sounds, keys, effects, leads, vocals. And it kind of organizes it for me so I can start taking apart the track and decide what I like about it, what I want to keep, what we don't want to keep. Happening on here yet. Timbales. Vocals are coming in. What really hit me about this track is the vocals. I really like the vocal. I've got here right now is I created a special project for this talk. I've taken snapshots of the project as it went along. This was the beginning when I first loaded in the stems and listened to them. And then over to the right is a little while later. I think this was the next day. So I've already muted some of the parts. I muted the melodic stuff because I wanted to try and play new keys on here and play chords and kind of jam with it, jam with the vocals. So what I like to do usually is electric piano. I'm a piano player, so I like the sound of this. It helps me flush out chords. Either this or sometimes I'll play a bass synth and just play a bass lines underneath. So there were no drums here, so I just kind of put a little click. Since it's in the key of E minor.
Why does it all feel so far away? What happened to the life we chose?
Anyway, let's listen to these chords. This is what I ended up coming up with.
What happened to the
How about a Rhodes when I sold it? I wish I hadn't sold it. It's so big and heavy though.
the life we chose? Why does it all feel so far away?
So just two chords. I think I was trying to
I still got silence Why can't we just go back to yesterday?
The idea here is not to be too critical. I know, like, ultimately we ended up not using these chords, but the idea is just to, like, just get ideas out, throw things and see what sticks and what doesn't. And I kind of left it at that day. The next day it was just an idea of just flushing it out a bit more. Let's see where this idea can go. I think I simplified the chords now, and I threw in some more synthesizer parts. This is an arpeggio of the same chords. Some bass notes to kind of start establishing the root of the song. Not everything works sometimes. I'm gonna try things out. And then we ended up, oh, I'm still keeping the original drums of the track just to work fast. Later on, you know, I'm not gonna keep these drums, but I just wanted to start getting ideas because I was already hearing them and I didn't want to take an hour or 2 hours to start laying out new drums. So just use what's there. So taking that idea, fleshing it out a bit more, adding some arrangement and some transitions, still with the same drums. This is a bit of a transition sound here. hard to hear on the system, but yeah, I'm used to listening to this on studio speakers. Arpeggiator is still there. Really quiet. Added a dog bark. Yeah, that ended up not staying in either. Okay, all right, so then next time I pick this up, like I played this for Jason. He gave me some feedback. New drums. Now these are drums that we created. Lots of sample loops in here. I ended up taking some of these out, but sometimes I just throw in a lot of stuff and more than you need, and then take it out, you know, carve it back. Keeping them all in their lane, like high percussion, medium percussion. To me, this just means, for me, like that means claps. Stuff in the mid-range, I guess. Mid percussion, not med. Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I end up doing now is a combination of two. I buy sample packs, but I also have a collection of my favorite kicks or my favorite hi-hats or kicks that I've used in previous productions that I thought were good. You know, I'll just like lift them and I put them into a sampler. The one I always use is Contact by Native Instruments. This guy here. So yeah, I'll throw in, I have a huge library of sounds that I like in Contact, and then I could play them on the keyboard. You know, like I tried different kicks, tried hi-hat loops from other songs that I've finished in the past. Why not reuse them sometimes? You know, like the thing with Contact that I really like is no matter what BPM you're at, you can set it to always play back at your project's BPM. So even though it was 120 BPM when I did that hi-hat loop, I'm at 126 now, it'll still play at the right speed. And I've gotten really good with Contact over the years, so I like using it. Yeah, speaking of tempo, I sped it up. I don't know if you noticed, like back here, even right after the first day, it was at 120. I sped it up to 126. Just took all the stems and sped them up. Because I wanted to make more of a dance track and something a little bit faster. Where were we? New drums, right? Yeah. Here we go. New drums. Yeah, so I think that's a good practice to get into if you want to develop your own sound. Start collecting your own sounds, you know, sounds that you really like, sounds that you don't have to go digging for a half hour to find a kick. Even if I don't end up using that kick, it's, you know, something that I know I like, and then I could always switch it out later. This particular kick came from a sample pack by a Montreal artist, Feek. He put out a really, really nice small collection of kicks that he's produced himself, and this is one of them. I really like it. And then that's considered low percussion for me because I want to treat this the same way. It's percussive and it's low frequency. So in this group now, I can process these sometimes, you know, throw a compressor on here or throw some saturation or distortion. But these are sounds that I want to keep together because the low end of the song will be determined by these two sounds. So I might as well work on them together. I kept some of the percussive hits from the original. I just laid them out in a different way, and I think I kept the shaker and the cymbals, yeah. And all the other stuff here is new. The vocals were a little pitchy. So in this part here, I actually took this, I clipped it out, and I pitched it up by like 3 cents or 13 cents or something like that. Like it worked in the original because the original didn't really have as much melodic stuff happening, but here I just thought with all these chords playing, it sounded a little bit off. So these are the kind of things that I'll listen for and do if necessary. So here, here, and here. Yeah, okay, so then I kind of left it, played it for Jason, and then usually what I like to do is remix the remix. And so I took this main sound, which was these chords here, electric piano chords, sampled them, like recorded that along part, and then cut it up, and then mapped it onto this guy here. Let's see. I might not be hitting. Oh yeah, they're down here. There we go. Okay, so, and then I just kind of started playing around with them, stuff like that. Let's see. Then I discovered this, Volcano by Fab Filter. This preset, it does a bit of a arpeggiated sound. So, messing around with that, I ended up with this. Right. With some automation. Right, yeah, the question is, do I have this effect on the bus already and then messed around with it? No, I had nothing on the bus. I just started exploring. Pick a plug-in at random sometimes, or one I haven't touched in a while, and I went through some of the presets. Well, in this case, you don't see it here because I don't use this laptop normally, but under this menu, you would see a lot of JS sounds. These are presets that I've modified and kept kind of like as I like them, and so this was just one of them. And you can see all the different knob twiddling I was doing as it was playing. These are all different knobs that I'm playing on this one plug-in as that stuff is playing. So you can see. And I usually like to bounce that down into an audio file. So that's what this next one is here, BIP, bounce in place. And then I did some more chopping. Once it was audio, I did some more chopping again because some of the movements I was making with that plugin got a little bit too wonky and squawky. So I picked just the best stuff And then it was too clicky as well. Let's see if we can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it. I'll bypass this declicker. This declicker is a great little tool. It's made by Isotope. But Waves makes similar stuff too. On these speakers, it's not as noticeable, but it's quite clicky. So this removes the clicks. You can see it counting here, how many clicks it's removed. And you can listen to the clicks. Right? Those things, once you start limiting and compressing, they start really sticking out. So I thought I'd take care of them now. And so I bounced it again. So this is the declicked version.
Why does it all feel so far away? I still got sand.
So it's a more kind of like staccato feel. I like that kind of stuff. I felt like it kind of drove the track a bit better rather than chords, all the pads. And then the bass was originally a Mini Moog bass from a preset, from a plugin by Arturia, but it wouldn't run on the laptop, so I just switched to this one, and it sounded just as good. It's basically just a sine wave, or a triangle wave. So.
Let's go back to yes.
Do. Very simple bass line. And the other thing I did was I took all the vocals, cut them up, and again mapped them in Contact, and created this kind of like an intro. This was just done with going like this with some of the vocals and then passing it through echo and reverb. I don't have it saved, but this is what it ended up sounding like. Kind of introduces the vocals. This is meant to be a club track, so DJ's mixing it in. It's kind of giving you a bit of a tease of what's to come. Okay, so Jason was cool with that, so that ended up becoming the way that the track progressed from this point on. Here, I just continued a bit more with adding this stuff here, which is just transitional stuff, like to help one part to flow into the next. So I think these are like reverse sounds. Yeah. And then this one. Yeah, stuff like that.
Far away. What happened to
So there's a key change here. This track is just doubling up these chords again. But you can't really hear it too much on these speakers, but on headphones you would notice it. That's without. So the trick on this is this guy here. Because they're created from the same sample, their left-right is exactly the same. So what I did here is I swapped the left and right on this new chord that gets introduced, so that it's complete opposite. And then when both of them are playing, they're not so much stacked on each other as kind of like mirror images of each other. And so it makes that part wide, and that's kind of like the chorus to me. So it kind of widens up the chorus a bit there. So if I just solo these two, and let's listen from there. Can you see how it got wider? Or here? That's just one way of doing it. Okay, what happened next? Let's see. Okay, so at this point, I've already got a lot of stuff happening. What I like to do is, for several reasons, I like to just print stems now at this point. So I'll follow my groups here. I'll print a low percussion stem, a high percussion, a mid percussion. That kind of future-proofs it, because sometimes these plug-in companies go out of business, and all of a sudden in the new version of OS that you have, it doesn't run anymore. And then you open up this project a few years from now, and it doesn't sound right. Nothing's working. Well, if you print stems, then you've created audio files. And in this session here, I think I've added a couple more things. I may have organized stuff a bit, but essentially the main takeaway is I printed a bunch of stems. So let's listen to this. Kick. That's the toms.
Can you separate out the parts once you print it to a stem? Can you unpack it again?
No, well, I can always go back to that project one step before, you know, like I can go back this way, go back to this one before I made them, you know, and I do that sometimes when I realize, oh man, you know, I made that hi-hat sounded fine, but now it's too loud. Instead of trying to fix it, I'll just print that hi-hat, the high perk stem again, print that stem again, and drop it back in to the new project. Because what I do with these stems now is I start a brand new project. I took these stems and put them into a template, and I start back at square one. And now it's clean. I don't have to worry about plugins running out of CPU. I can focus on what the sounds are. Let me just go through these here so you can see the idea. Take off that kick so we can hear the other stuff. Got the toms. I'm not hearing this. I guess they're pretty quiet. The idea when you make stems is that you want them to all play, when they're all playing at once, you don't want to be overloading your meter. Your output meter should be no higher than -6 or something like that. Yeah, there they are. That's why these up here are so quiet. What do we got here? More high perk. Oh, that was the medium perk. Bass line. The chords, I kept them on their own. These are just various pad sounds. Oh yeah. I did add one more sound, now that I recall. Let's go back.
Why does it all feel so far away? What happened to
this sound here came from a synth called Zebra. I can't open it up in the laptop. It doesn't seem to want to open up. It's probably a memory thing, but this is what it sounds like. And again, this was just like fooling around, and I found a sound. I wanted to have some sort of chords happening here. They kind of sound a bit out of tune, and that's because I'm not using an equally tempered scale. The scale I'm using has 19 notes per octave, and that's one of the cool things about Zebra. You can easily switch scales, and then instead of using the default 12-note scale, you've got African and Chinese scales in there, and then this 19-note scale. I picked notes that were close to the notes that I wanted. You hear how it sounds out of tune? But sometimes playing in an equally tempered scale is like being in a cage, you know, and you're only allowed this note and this note and this note and this note, but nothing in between, you know, unless you bend. So sometimes breaking out of that rigid pattern gives you some new sounds, and you can create some more subtle feelings. So that's what I was going for with this. So I took that, recorded it, and mapped it again on Contact. Each of these are a little bit different. And I created kind of like a nice little ambience like that. Oh yeah, there's an Echo Boy on there too. Great plugin. That's without it. And then this is what ended up being on the remix, is this part here. There's automation, there's volume, so most of the time it's not even playing, it's just more in the chorus. So yeah, getting back to printing the stems. So printing the stems, here's where that arpeggio ended up being. Right, I ended up cutting it up a little bit more. Yeah, so now take these stems, open them up in a new project, and start editing again. So in this case now, what I'm trying to do is carve away the excess or remove things that aren't necessary and try to make this work for a DJ on a dance floor. And sometimes for that kind of target, you want things to be simple and not too many elements. So I tend to overproduce and throw a lot of stuff in, so I try to be pretty critical at this stage here and remove stuff. And what I ended up removing was those first chords that we ended up sampling. Where are they? Oh yeah, so I cut off this whole section here. Here's the chords. They used to start right at the beginning. Now they only come in on the second verse. So this first part of the track is a lot more atonal, and that makes it easier for a DJ to mix it in with another track that may not be in the same key. These start coming in a little earlier. chords there. Now it's just bass and vocals.
Where does it all feel so far away?
And I don't know if you've noticed, it's semitone, it's one semitone down now. Did you notice that? I actually pitched it up at the beginning, or maybe like around here. Yeah, I think that's E sharp, or F, I guess. Yeah, so it was up a semitone from E to F, and then I just started second guessing myself. I liked it at F, but I thought maybe the singer might not like his voice pitched up, and so I put it back down. Back to the original. Yeah, this is the original pitch. I just cut out the bass, it's very bassy in here, so you hear the melodic elements of it better. So I really like how these kind of like give you a hint of the melody, and then the chords come in only now. Yeah, about 4 minutes in. That way it's like a fresh new element that you haven't heard before, and it kind of helps keep the excitement on the track rather than having them play all from the beginning. They weren't really neat. Okay, so we're almost done, really. I think the next step, so these were already stems, and did I do anything else? No, I guess that's it. So this is the mixed version.
Why can't we just go back? I still got sand between my toes. Why can't we just go back to yesterday? Away in the sunshine, away in the sea.
Steps here are to make a pre-master, and I believe that's what this is. Pre-master is just what you deliver to the mastering house. So you want it to not be hitting at you don't want it to be hitting at maximum like this. You don't want to see red there. You want to see a good -6 is nice. You know, you need to leave room for the mastering engineer to be able to do his final touch to it. So, as long as there's 3 or 4. Yeah, what I was doing here on the main group was, yeah, maybe we should get into this part, because I do want to talk a little bit about the template that I use. This is a bit weird because it's artificial. I kind of created this project just for the presentation. But basically, I got a drum group which is just for the mid and the high percussion. The low percussion goes straight to the main group. But the mid percussion and the high percussion, I like to group those together because I do like to treat them. Here in this case, there's not much happening. A decapitator working just on the, hear the kick. I don't think the kick's going through there. No, it's not. Oh yeah, this is why it's still playing. There we go. Okay, so that's what's on the drum bus. Decapitator, just to kind of squish things together and make it feel cohesive like one thing. That's without it. And then a little bit of EQ, which is not working. Okay, so that EQ, what was it doing anyway? Just rolling off a bit of the low end because we don't want it to compete with the kick, and a little bit of the high end. That's all. Okay, and then the other thing, bass also goes straight to the main group, but all this other stuff, like the low keys, the pads, all the musical stuff, goes to a music group. So that if I want to lower the music, I don't have to do all these faders individually. I can just go to the music group. Quiet. Let's go over here. There's a gain here on the music group. So at some point I decided that it was 4 dB too loud, so I turned it down. But you know, you can control the mix a lot quicker this way. Bring down the music, turn it up. Vocals, same thing. In this case, if there's backing vocals, I'd put those on a separate group too, just so they go on their own stem. And then there's this one thing here called a smash group. I send the drums to there. The drum group goes to this smash group, and so does the music, but not the bass and not the kick. Vocals sometimes. In this case, they do go to the smash group. And what this group does is, I don't want to really crush the drums and bass too much, but I do sometimes want to kind of gel all the other sounds and kind of make them a bit more consistent. So in this case, there's this great plugin. It kind of adds a vinyl sound to everything. Let's just solo the smash group. Got a turning table. It's very subtle. You won't hear it on these speakers, but you can actually put crackle and noise in there. Click. Don't want to go that far, but try a little bit of crackle. Sometimes a little bit of grit and things just gives it a bit more character. So I like using this one. And then these things here are NLS, nonlinear summer. So these, what they simulate is going through an analog mixer. And there's 3 different ones here, Spike, Mike, and Nevo. These are like 3 famous consoles that they've sampled. Not just one channel, but all 32 channels. You can actually pick a different channel for each of your tracks, so that you have channel 1 on track 1, channel 2 on track 2, and the grit and noise of this seminal mixer that they've sampled is applied to your tracks. So it adds a little bit of non-linearity, a little bit of drive. In this case, I always have the drive set to non-zero, a little bit of, like, just a little bit of drive. It's hard to notice, but it's there. And I've stacked 3 of them, and each one is, I think this one's set to Mike, and this one's set to Nevo. They're just adding a little bit of grit and dirt and kind of gelling all the sounds that go through there. If I turned them off, you would hardly notice them. Let's see.
Why can't we just go back to yesterday? Away in the sun.
It's getting louder. That's why I have the gain here. So. There is a difference. Now, this guy, over the top, just dialed in at 11% because it's very, it'll like rip everything apart. But just a little bit of it adds a nice bit of grit. And then this one, the LFO tool, it's giving it a bit of a pump. Let's exaggerate it. It's hitting on every quarter note. Right? Just to kind of give it a bit of a swing. But very subtle. Like depth is down to 30%. And it's not going all the way down. It's just going a little bit down. You can
What happened to the life we chose?
Yeah, and then on the main channel, where everything funnels into,
So far away.
I have another OCD in there. Skull block. Kind of like a smart EQ. It finds things that are a little bit peaky and brings them down, and things that are a little bit being buried, it brings them back up. Yeah, it is like a dynamic EQ. You can see that it's moving up and down. It responds to the track instantaneously. Yes, that's right. It finds it for you. You just play with the recover. And with the chain. and you kind of look. It's called Gullfoss. Gullfoss. It's made by can't remember what's made. Oh, Sound Theory. Gullfoss is apparently a waterfall in Iceland. That's where they're from. I don't always use it, but stuff that's got vocals, I like to use it. And then final limiter on here is, this is my favorite limiter made by DMG Audio. It's called Limitless. And it's a multi-channel limiter. It's not really being hit right now. But just, I always keep the threshold at -14, and then I put a gain in front of it, and then just turn up that gain until it's doing stuff. I'm looking at this LUFS, the loudness units, full scale, and I'm aiming for about -9 for a dance track. So, around there. Yeah, you can see here there's different frequencies that are. It's like 5 or 6 limiters. Here, let's turn this up. You can see them all happening. It's limiting each band independently. So if you need a lot of bass end to be limited, but not top end, you're not bringing the whole thing down. You're just bringing in the low end where it's limiting where it's needed, kind of. Other than that, I don't really have much stuff on this template. I like to keep it like lean and fast loading, but it's just a way of helping me organize the tracks. I might sometimes bounce these stems again. If I've done a lot of work on these, I'll bounce another set of stems because the same thing will apply. Like you want to future-proof it. If these plugins end up going away one day, you won't be able to open this project and get it to sound the same way as it did when you originally did it. So I will, bounce stems. In this case, I didn't because I really didn't do too much. Looks like I cut out the toms here and cut out these keys, but other than maybe adding a little bit of compression on some of these things, some more LFO tool on the pads. Not really much else was done to it. Each of these channels has an NLS on there too, just to, again, add a bit of, make it sound like you're going through a mixer, because everything in digital now is so clean that it sometimes has the risk of being a bit too clinical, and I like to introduce the little bits of things like that. Here's an interesting one, the glitch on the high percussion. As it's playing, it's introducing little glitches every now and then. You can do gated sounds. You can hear that. That's a little bit too much, but there's a little one happening here. Tape stops. Glitch. I think it's called glitch. Yeah. Oh yeah, glitch 2. Yeah. Yeah, illformed.com. It's pretty cheap too. Yeah, it's good. And then I think there's some LFO tools on here. I wanted to make the hi-hats a bit more swingy. Let's see if we can hear it. This is without it. I'll make the depth a bit higher. Okay, so that's what it's doing. In this case, it's running every 16th note. So it looks like it's playing the first half of the 16th note and then cutting off the second half of the 16th note. So you can kind of get a bit of more of a funky swing that way. And of course, you can play with these all day long if you want. You know, it's a great little tool, LFO tool, made by Xfer Records, and it's really cheap too. I think it's $20. Shaperbox is the same thing. Yeah, I use Shaperbox, but I think LFO tool is a bit less CPU intensive, so that's why I like to grab it. But I do in the next one that I want to show you, I'm using Shaperbox quite a bit actually. Okay, so that's the remix. I also brought an original track, and I kind of did the same thing. I showed a bunch of stages of where it was at. And that one was one that I started back in 2017. The way I write tracks is from ideas that I have in an idea vault. And those ideas are kind of things that I just jam. I'm jamming along in my studio and oh, that sounds good, you know, let's record that, or let's create a quick session. And lately, what I've been doing is formalizing that a bit. So, for example, I try to do this every morning, but I don't really succeed at it all the time. But dedicate an hour or two in the morning to just coming up with new ideas. And I have a Logic template that I load up, and it's just got 3 lines of drums. Like one line is it's like a house beat, and the next one is a techno kind of drum beat, and the other one's kind of a broken beat. And I pick a tempo at random, and then I've got 2 or 3 instruments, you know, like a Rhodes, and then a synth, and then a bass, and I'll just start jamming, turn on the beat, and just see what comes up. Or I might load in a new plugin that I've bought and just start scanning through the presets and see if I can come up with ideas for just a song. And the idea is for you to just exercise your creative muscle. You know, like think of it as doing scales. Like a pianist is practicing scales, or if you're a violinist, you know, you're doing fingering, and all you're doing is limbering up and becoming better attuned to your instrument. If you're a producer, your instrument is the studio. So it's a way of kind of getting familiar with these new plugins that you've bought, or presets that you have, or ways of creating things. And so I'll give myself like 15 to 30 minutes and try not to focus on quality and no judgment, just like record it, whether you like it or not. After 30 minutes, stop, make an audio bounce of it, and then I put it into a folder called, you know, my ideas vault. And then the trick is to not listen to it for at least 2 weeks. Don't listen to it. You may hate it or you may like it, but just kind of let it marinate for a while. And then that's when I'll start working on the real project for the day, you know, the remix or something. But before that, like first thing in the morning for me, not everyone does that, but I know a lot of other producers have explained that they do this kind of stuff too. Mike Monday was one whose course I took, and he calls it splurging, and it's I got a lot of this idea from him. But other producers I've talked to have similar procedures, and that's how you kind of start creating this big body of ideas that, you know, they don't even have to be in the genre that you like to produce, because sometimes, you know, I'll pick a 90 beats per minute break beat and let's see what I can come up with that, you know, like, or just an ambient, turn off the drums entirely and just like play with presets and see what comes up, and then save those. I used to do music for films and commercials and that kind of stuff. You never know what it's going to fit into, even though you may not like it at the moment, or think that it's appropriate for what you're trying to do, like a dance track or something. It may, down the road, fit perfectly into a commercial jingle or a little bit of film score. You never know. So I have those. They're on my iPod or on my phone in iTunes, and I have them, you know, in different folders: tech house, ambient, breakbeat, you know, and I'll listen to them from time to time, and that's when I'll decide, oh, this one actually shows some promise. Maybe I'll bring it in and start working on it, and then that's when I start paying attention to details and being a little bit more critical. Yeah, the idea of getting those, it's like morning pages. I don't know if you ever heard of morning pages from the creativity book, where you just have, it's more for writers, we just have a journal every morning. You just write 5 or 6 pages, just whatever comes out, like just write. And this is the idea too, of exercising your creative muscle and just getting stuff out. And it's really helped me to have this bank of ideas that I can dip into whenever I don't feel creative and I want something to start. So that's how this one started. This is from is that a drum beat? I had a very simple drum beat, and then I started playing with my Tetra synth. This is a little hardware synth made by Dave Smith. So I got this sound out of it. These bells. And these strings. This was back in 2017. Yeah, right? It sounded like it could go somewhere. So the next step for that one was just adding more percussion. I think this green stuff here. So fleshing it out a little bit. I started creating a bit more of an arrangement. Sometimes sometimes I'll change the tempo. In this case, it stayed at 119. Or sometimes pitch it up, pitch it down, see how it sounds. Sometimes if it's a bit muddy, I'll pitch it up. What else we got here? So here on this ride, there's a shaper box here, doing essentially the same thing, but I'm playing with this mix. If you look at the ride, when it's here, shorter, right? And then here, wider. When you turn off this, it's leaving the long tail. So when this is on, it's cutting that tail off, making it a bit more staccato. Added an impact, so little transition things like that to just help introduce one section into the next. Those are useful. The next thing I did was, so I created some stems. I think at this point, this was still in 2017. I didn't do much more. Ran out of ideas, so I just made a bunch of stems and then put it away. So I made these stems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 11. And then a year later, I decided to pick it up again, and I realized that I didn't like the stems. I wanted to go back to how it was, so I didn't use those stems at all. This was a year later, but it's still the same project as up here. I wasn't happy with the drums, and for some reason I didn't like the stems, so that happens sometimes. What I ended up doing here is with Serum, I couldn't load it in my laptop, so I just burnt these into audio files, but I created a couple more parts with Serum. Serum is a synthesizer, soft even so, it's still like complaining. It's following the same melody that was originally with the Tetra synth. Oh, doesn't want to play. As I'm going along, I'm making little adjustments to the arrangement, cutting parts out here just to, again, create transitions and helps the track move along. These parts, I think these are already there. Yeah, these are already there. So, yeah, so I added those. Let's see, where else did it go? One other thing, I felt like this section here, I was hearing some vocals, but I didn't know what. So here, what I did was are you guys familiar with Paul Stretch? Yeah. Paul Stretch? Yeah. It's a great program here. I took this vocal, this one here,
I feel the pull of the dance. Wondering.
And this one, I think I used to. I'm not sure where I got these. It's like lost in time now. But anyway, Paul Stretch will take these, what is this? 1 minute and 48 seconds and stretch it to 7 minutes and 19 seconds in this case. This piece of software kind of became famous when he did this to a Justin Bieber song, and he put it on YouTube, I think. And it just sounded like some ambient Boards of Canada stuff. So that's what I did with these, just to kind of create raw material. So I'm kind of using a vocal. That I don't have permission to use, but so I took that 8 minutes, cut it up again using my technique, cut it up and put it into Contact. Let's see, Anderson 2. Let's see. So I'm playing them on the keyboard, and then I just fooled around with it until I found something that would kind of fit with the track, and these MIDI parts here ended up becoming these ones here as WAV files. So I'll just play those, and this is the part. This is what it sounds like. I'll turn it up a bit. When you can't get a vocalist, next best thing. Not that I couldn't get a vocalist, but I just wanted it right now. I don't want to stop. That's just, what can I do? So I think at this point what I did was, again, made some stems. I was happy with it at this point. So I made some stems, loaded them in to a new project. So in this case, I don't think I really did much to them at all. A little bit of EQ on the drums, more EQ. Typically, I'm just removing little parts that I think are a little bit resonant. Like, let's see. Get that. For some reason I thought that needed to come down. Right. Just little adjustments. But I prefer to do this here because now it's there's no other plugins, and it's kind of like a fresh start, so to speak. So that's why I really like doing the stems. The stems is almost like a like a fresh start. This guy doing a little bit of stuff there too. I tried to install this today a couple of times, and every time I reload the program, it's asking for the license, so weird. Bass, it's quite a bit of stuff happening on the bass. That usually needs a lot of work, but okay, so this was the multi-band compressor, so I'm just compressing the low end here. That's kind of bringing the boom down on the bass. Again, a little bit of static EQ, and then track space. This is a great little plugin. You can send it a side chain. In this case, it's the vocals. So the bass in this song is not just bass. It's that tetra synth sound. Let's see. Right. So it's not just bass, it's got some mid-range in there too. And during the vocals, I didn't want that mid-range to cut into the vocals. So let's put the vocals on. So whenever the vocals play, it carves out a frequency out of the bass. You can make it extreme. Because those vocals are happening in the mid-range, and so is the bass, and I don't want them competing. So I did automation there because I didn't want to do it throughout the whole track. I just wanted to do it during that first part of the vocals, right here. So it doesn't do anything until the vocals are hitting. And you can control the frequency range where it operates to do the whole spectrum, or just that part. I didn't want it to affect the bass completely. It's more the mid-range that I wanted to dip. So yeah, Waves Factory, Track Spacer. You could do it through drawing automation, but this way it's a lot quicker, and Track Spacer reads the signal, I think 300 times a second or something like that. So it's very accurate, and it's got a bunch of little filters. So it does it just where it needs to be. It looks at the vocal, what frequencies are on there, and then brings them down, cuts them out of the bass or whatever. And I think that was it. Oh, I did another little dip here for some reason at 45 hertz. Yeah, so these are the kind of things that I'm doing with the stems. It's just like fine-tuning stuff. The pads. Rolled off a little bit of the high end. The bells. The bells also have a track spacer on there too. Same reason. During the vocals, I didn't want them. The same frequencies as the vocals, right? Yeah, same pitch there. And I didn't want to make the vocals too loud, because then everything gets too loud and it starts building up. So it's better to just cut a groove out of some of the other sounds to get everything to fit well. And on the synths, again, a little bit of EQ. And yeah, that looks like about it. So the final step that I sometimes do, not always, but in this case, this was one of my own tracks, and I was putting it out myself, so I ended up doing the mastering myself. And this was a trick that a mastering engineer taught me a while back. Okay, so from these stems now, I bounce a pre-master. So you remember what a pre-master is? It's the finished song, but with a little bit of headroom in there. It's not maxed out. It's not ready to play in a club. It still has a little bit of room. In a new project, I open it up, and then I do something called mid-side processing. Anyone ever hear mid-side processing? You've got left and right normally, right, on a stereo signal. But there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it as left and right, or you can look at it as mid, everything in the middle. In other words, everything that's coming out of both speakers, and then side, which is only the stuff that's coming out of the sides, like nothing in the middle. For example, the kick, that's right in the middle. Bass, right in the middle. Usually that's right in the middle. But sometimes the reverbs, for example, that'll be stuff that's just stereo, so that'll only be in the sides, not so much in the middle. And if you think about a piece of stereo music in that way, you can do some processing to it that is almost impossible to do if you're just thinking in terms of left and right. So using this little plug-in here, BX Solo, I've soloed just the mid. See, M solo is on. So this is just the mid of the track. You can hear the bass, hear the kick, hi-hats. Sounds like most of the track, because most of the track is down the middle. But if you listen to the sides, no kick anymore, right? This one here, the BX Solo, is set to S solo, so sides only. So this is the side information. This is basically the stereo information. If you don't hear this, you just hear the mid, you're just hearing mono, flat. So the two together, that makes the whole spectrum, or the whole panoramic width. But the trick with this is, what he taught me is find a hot spot in like where everything's playing, and then go with an EQ. I've dipped down certain frequencies here. What I do is I turn this up full, and then I scan, starting at about 200 up. Slowly, and you're looking for frequencies that are kind of sticking out a little bit too much, that you wouldn't normally hear. But if you play this in a boomy club or something that's not really acoustically treated very well, these ones might really start hitting your ears, you know. So the idea is to go through the whole thing, find ones that you think could be turned down, and I just turn them down 3 dB with a Q of about 9, like pretty narrow EQ. If I turn this off, it's not noticeable. In headphones you would notice it. It's not very noticeable. But the thing is, when I do it to the side now, I'm going to find different frequencies. See, in this case, the peaks, they sometimes occur at the same frequency, but often not, they don't. They occur at different frequencies. A lot of times it'll be the harmonics of the song. You know, if the key is E, then it'll be the E notes and the A's and so on. But not always. Sometimes there's some odd, weird stuff happening in there. The other thing I'm doing is rolling off the bottom end on the sides. You don't want this stuff here on your sides because typically bass should be down the center, and especially if it's going to vinyl, your needle will fly out of the record groove if there's stereo information below 200 hertz. So because this is side stuff, it's essentially just the stereo information. So I'm rolling off anything below 100. Because on the mid, I don't do that because we want the frequencies all the way down to the bottom, right down the middle. But on the sides, you don't want that. So this kind of mid-side processing, when you compare it to without those EQs, you'll hear that things are a little bit wider and there's more breathing room all of a sudden, you know, and it's just these little 3 dB dips, but these are things that were a little bit peaky to begin with, so just cutting them out makes a little bit more room. And the other thing he taught me was to add a bit of presence. This one here has an EQ rolled off at 500, so this is just the top end stuff. That. It's just the regular pre-master on here. These are all the same copies of the same thing, just on different tracks, and each one they're all being mixed together at the end, but this one is just to add a little bit of presence. So I use this fader here and just dial it in as necessary. that's way too much, right? But around minus 12, it brings in a little bit more presence that you've removed by cutting some of these frequencies. You know, the ones that we just cut right here. Adding a bit of this presence brings a little bit of that back in. And you just do that to taste. Now the last one that he also told me about is this New York compression. So again, this is an exact duplicate, but in this case now, I'm hitting it really hard with this compressor. So it's a really squash signal. And that, just bring that in as well too, to taste. And it just brings up a little bit of the lower, quieter sounds, brings those back up, and it's called parallel compression or New York style compression. And yeah, that's the last final thing I do, and then I make these all go into this parallel chain, and then my final master chain. In this case, it's an R compressor. And then this is a mastering plugin from Abbey Road Studios. It's made by Waves. Let's see what that sounds like. Compressor, just hitting a little bit, not very much, just kind of gluing things together. You can go overboard on it. I didn't do too much because this plugin already is doing some compressing too. It's got compression, and it has also a little bit of saturation as well. So this is without it. It's called the mastering chain, and it's supposedly the mastering chain at Abbey Road Studios in one of their rooms, I guess. And then a little bit of EQ, just rolling off the bottom end and rolling off the top end, nothing fancy. And I have it set to linear so that there's no phase changes. Linear EQ is more CPU intensive, but it doesn't cause any phase anomalies. And because this is kind of the last stage, I don't want to introduce any phase anomalies, so I use a linear rather than a zero phase EQ. And then the limiter at the end, just to bring it up to the loudness. So this wouldn't be the pre-master, this would be the master, the final master. This is what I ended up releasing. I think this gain was on though. Maybe not that high. I'm looking at this number here and aiming for about -9. Yeah, so I don't need that gain. Yeah, it's about right there. So maybe a little high. So maybe a gain of -1. I could just touch this threshold here, same thing, but I like keeping this at -14 because all of my presets are at -14, and that way I can A/B presets over and over and not have to adjust the gains or anything. So I just put a gain plugin ahead of it right here, and let's set that to like maybe -1. Reset this. Let's try -2. Reset it. Yeah, that's close enough to -8. Maybe one more. -3. It's just as ballpark anyway. Doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. Wait, oh, this has to be on. That's right. that's what I wanted to cover. Yes.
Would you say that mid-side skewing technique and stuff in that stage that you're showing the friend mastering in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
would some of that be okay to do into the pre-master stage as well, or before you hand it to Matt, or would you say don't only do that at the end?
Oh, yeah, I do that before I pass it to a mastering guy. Yeah, because this is still in the pre-mastering. Yeah, I'm in this case.
You said you were mastering it yourself.
Yeah, in this case I did. In this final chain here, I am mastering it, but I would go like, take this limiter off. If you take this limiter off and consider all of these plugins as part of your sound, which is what I do, then it's now hitting at, let's see, minus 11, minus 9. It'll tend to hit at about like minus 6. And that's what I like to send to a mastering guy. So this is what I would send if I was getting it mastered. Just simply take that limiter off. And if I was putting it out myself, I'd do it with the limiter.
To isolate the mid side from Brainworks.
Yeah, that's a free plugin. Yeah, it's like a little utility. It lets you switch left and right if you want, and you can solo the left channel, solo the right channel, or solo the mid, or solo the side. If you're interested in mid side, there's tons of information online about it, and it'll explain to you the idea. But a lot of mastering guys, mastering people, will use mid side processing because they can really get in there. And they might want to just, the other thing you can do here is you can make it more or less stereo. If you find it's too wide, you can bring down the sides a bit. You know, they don't have to be right off or full on. You can, yeah, bring the volume a bit down or bring it up if you want to make it a bit wider. You know, just be careful. I don't normally do that, but you can. Yeah. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free, but if not, thank you very much for coming. I hope that was useful for some of you, or most of you.
Do you know if Isotope has because I have this whole, I've got this whole bundle and a lot of stuff I don't use. There's something called Relay.
In Isotope? Yeah, Isotope does mid-side EQ, and so does FabFilter Pro EQ3. That does, you can do mid-side. Even the one that I use here, I believe this EQ here, made by DMG Audio. I think here you can go to mid-side, yeah. So you can, now I'm just EQing in the mid.
Now that you're aware of it, you're going to see it everywhere.
What's that?
It's lots of these plugins out there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's a lot of stock Logic stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the Logic one does it too. Yeah, yeah. But in this case here, I've actually kind of created a bit of a I guess a bit of routing. So these four, the mid side presence and New York compression, they all have the same plugins on them. Just because I don't trust the latency compensation, I want these to be like exactly sample accurate. If one of them is off by a few samples, then you're going to get phasing. You know, it's not going to work. So on every channel, I have exactly the same plugin, even though the compressor is only doing New York compression on the NY comp channel. It's still on the other channels and just not doing anything. You see, it's set to 0. But it's there just so that every channel has the identical processing on it and identical sample delay. Each one of these plugins introduces a few samples of delay, and I want them all to be exactly the same. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, but it's pretty easy to set up. The key is this plugin, and there's nothing in Logic that does that, unfortunately. The mid, soloing the mids and soloing the sides. As far as I know, there isn't one. But yeah.
Where are you releasing this track? You said you were releasing it.
Yeah, I already released this in January on my label Pure Space. It's called Approaching Zero. Yeah. And the other one, the remix, it's coming. I've sent it off about a week ago, so I think it's coming out in mid-June or something like that. Yeah, it's that one's. Oh yeah, that I went through. It was a remix by Collective Groove. They're from Spain, and the track is called African Passion, and it's coming out on a South African label called Snedja Records. Yeah. Yeah, we're excited. We're doing another one. Jason's working on that one, my partner in Tone Pushers, because it's actually a Tone Pushers remix. He's doing the other one, and I took this one because this one needed to get finished faster, and he was a little bit more busy than I was. So typically we work together, but in this case we're just kind of like doing our own thing, and then bouncing the ideas off of the other person and getting feedback, getting it done.
Would you be able to talk a little bit about hi-hats and high percussion sequencing? Like I noticed in the previous project you had constructed your own drum track.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in there, and I assume that was sort of packed up. You know, I don't want to derail. I appreciate everything. This
Sure,
is so
sure.
amazing. I just, you know, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
So you want me to talk a little bit about how I do the high-end percussion?
Yeah. Just interaction between hi-hats and rides, and how, you know, if you probably have your own philosophy and preferences around that. I don't know if that's simple to get into and discuss.
Yeah, I can get into that. Well, let's look at some of the hi-hat stuff that's happening here. One thing that I do is fuss over how the sounds are sitting in respect to the kick. So I'll shift them back and forth in time by little ticks. Like you see here in Logic, there's a delay and a tick. There's 192 of them in a quarter note, I believe, or in a bar. Maybe there's 192 in a bar. But anyway, a tick is a really small thing. In this case, let's see, a tick. If I put a 3-tick delay or 4-tick delay, that is equivalent to 2.1 milliseconds, thousandths of a second. So it's not very much, but sometimes that's all it takes to kind of get the groove feeling a little better. So that's one of the things that I end up playing a lot with. Let's see. No, it's not exactly a swing. It's more like a late or early kind of rushed or laid back feeling, you know? Like let me put something really exaggerated in here, like 90. We'll get the drums playing. You can see how late it is now? I'll make it even worse, or not. Yeah, sometimes that can, but that's probably not why you'd want to do it, because you might make the beat suffer just by preventing a spike. So normally you don't do that to prevent spikes, but you can take care of spikes in another way. But okay, so here this is a 200 tick delay. Obviously, it's, you know, let's go back to 0. But sometimes, you know, it feels rushed to me, and I'm pretty sure it's just oral hallucinations at some point after listening to it for so long. And so I try not to go too crazy on it, and you know, check myself. But sometimes I'll do, you know, like a -3 to make it a little bit earlier. So that's some of the stuff. But shuffle or swing is a different thing. And let's see, who can swing won't affect this one, because swing only happens on the off beats, and this one is on a beat. So let's get like shakers here. Anything that's playing 16th notes, you can notice swing on. There's no 16th notes here. Yeah, this track doesn't have 16th notes. Oh, maybe here. Yeah. But because this is a complete loop, I can't really affect the, well, I can, normally I can't affect swing. Yeah, it's already embedded. But in Logic, what you can do is turn on flex. So if we turn on flex, then you could treat audio as if it was MIDI. And so now I can quantize it. Yeah, Ableton does it really well, Ableton Live, but they were doing it before Logic was, but then Logic introduced this flex. So let's see what I can do here. So turn on quantize. And let's see now. It's set to 50% swing, but let's give it like. It takes a while, and sometimes you have to restart it. I'm not hearing it. It should be pretty extreme. Yeah. Oh, it did something there. Yeah. But normally I do swing with MIDI tracks when the notes are still, in MIDI rather than audio. So when you're actually like playing a hi-hat like that, with a MIDI note, then you could start doing the swinging and the quantizing. But it does work in audio. And here in this case, I didn't really hear it, but it does work. This one's just eighth notes. I think like this one here, there is 16th notes in there, but they're quite quiet. Oh, maybe because this is on. You can hear them a bit better now. Anyway, yeah. What else with respect to hi-hat stuff? Yeah, right. Yeah, so so you're asking if loops already have embedded swing and delays. Yeah, they totally do, and sometimes that works in your favor, and that might be why you pick that loop. You're going through a whole bunch of loops to see what fits in your track, and you might find one that has just the right swing already. Whereas if you're coming from a drum machine, then you have to dial in that swing on the drum machine, how much swing you want, and that kind of thing. So yeah, loops will sometimes have that just right for you, and you'll end up picking it because of that. The other one, not this track, but the remix, I used a lot of loops in there. I ended up taking some of them out, but a lot of those loops did have their own swing to them already. And sometimes that might clash if they all have different swings, but by shifting them around or doing what I did there with the flex, you can force them to fit into a swing that works for your track.
Yeah, so thank you. This is great. I think we'll probably get to Newark to give us a quick chat shortly, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you guys for coming out.
You guys got kind of suckered into something here. We're doing a little talk on Beats Union from the founder and director of Beats Union. It's an artist-centric
music selling platform, Canadian-based. It's amazing. Vaguely like Bandcamp or Beatport, but much better. And so he's actually a friend of the festival. They're sponsoring the night, and he's going to talk briefly about Beats Union and what's happening in the community that we're building for a couple of minutes, and do a really brief Q&A before we get the party started. Of course, we're streaming too, so it'll just take a second to switch over to Noor and check it out. Thanks.